You stated in the past that the end goal for this work is some form of an anatomical compiler. The DNA is the hardware and you don't have to rewire it, but the bioelectric signaling, it can be treated as some form of software that you can actually write. And you just spoke about exploring the latent space of what these xenobots are capable of. And you've said at least one of the things they could do is you could direct them towards repairing organs, you could repair, maintaining them, or even regenerating limbs and organs in a human body. How does this change our worldview? What would be the philosophical implication if we start living in a world where we have these synthetic organisms that can actually create new organisms, repair organs, regenerate limbs and organs? It feels like our entire worldview, our lifestyle is built on these processes that have this philosophy embedded around the mortality and the impermanence of the human body, or the fragility of it. There's so many checks and balances and safety and securities built into the system. If we start living into a world where we can start regenerating limbs and organs, or we can start creating organisms from scratch, would that change your worldview in any way? Would that have any philosophical weight?
Well, the first thing I'll say is that when you say there are safeties and securities built into our system, that is a very optimistic view. I mean, there are, of course, but if you look at the incredible amount of biomedical suffering that's out there, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical doctor. The emails I get every day from people in the most unbelievable circumstances are telling us that we need to be very careful with these kinds of ethical arguments, because what often people will say is, whenever I give talks about these things, people say, what are the ethical implications? What they really mean is, what are the dangers? Okay, everybody's asking, okay, you scientists, the unspoken assumption is that everything is great, and you scientists better not screw it up. Okay, don't do anything to make it worse. That's the unstated. Everybody always asks about the risks. Of course, we need to worry about the risks, no doubt. But what you can't forget is the opportunity cost, because I think it is ethically unconscionable to pretend that everything is fine now, and to say that what we're going to do is try to maintain status quo. I think this is incredible moral cowardice. I think mostly people who say this are young, healthy people. And as soon as they have a kid who's sick and they run to the hospital and pray like hell that somebody has figured something out, or they themselves, like the people that email me that they have a spinal cord injury or some horrible disease or something, it becomes very obvious that the status quo is really untenable. So I want to think about it in the following way. At some point back in the day, it was possible to have the following worldview. You could say that, look, natural. I want to be natural. Okay, we were created, and all of this was kind of figured out by a well-meaning intelligence that set this up in the correct way for us, in line with our goals and values, and let's stick to that. Okay, I think we can, looking around, if you know, if you've ever been in a pediatric oncology ward, I think that view goes out the window. You can say that is not the case. What we are the product of is a long history of trial and error. Evolution does not care about you or your goals or your values. Evolution works towards larger biomass. That's it. If you're good enough to persist and be observed in the future, good enough. Nothing else matters. And so we are the product of eons of random cosmic rays hitting the cytoplasm of our cells. Is there possibly an argument to say that that's what we should leave our life to? I think it's ridiculous and unconscionable. So here's what I think is going to happen. I think future people are going to look back in school. Kids in the future are going to look back on this time period the way that we look back on our primitive hominid ancestors, where you learn that you try to, when you're a kid, and you learn about how early man lived, and in fact not that early, up until fairly recently. You think, my God, stepping on a sharp stick and getting an infection meant you get sepsis and died, and your teeth, you got a toothache that would drive you mad from the pain by the time you were 30, and your teeth would fall out, and all these incredible things. I think, how could they live this way? You think before antibiotics, before an understanding of the germ theory of surgery, of any of these things, how did people live this way? It's hard to imagine. I think the humans of the future are going to look back in this period, and they're going to say, wait a minute, you're trying to tell me that people were born and had to live their whole life in whatever body they were randomly given? with all of the limitations of IQ, of potential, of capabilities, and they got degenerative diseases, and they were susceptible to dumb bacteria and viruses and degenerative disease and all this stuff. And they just had to live the way that they were randomly born with, however, the mutation. That's how is that possible? How did they live this way? I hope that's where it's going, because I think it's completely inappropriate to leave it in the hands of these things that don't care anything about the massive suffering that's out there. And I think where we're going, and it's not just, I'm not saying that the way to it is bioelectricity and xenobots, although I certainly hope that we're providing some steps in that direction. But overall, cracking the problem of how do you convince cellular agents to build one thing instead of another thing is going to radically rewrite medicine as a whole. And the idea of not just micromanaging molecular states the way we do now with drugs, but actually communicating goals, health goals to the somatic intelligence of the body is going to lead to something I call freedom of embodiment. And so what that means is it shouldn't be up to a bunch of dumb cosmic rays what your and the random meanderings of mutation and selection over the years, how you live your life. You should be in control of it. If you want a different embodiment, and I don't just mean a healthier standard human, because there's nothing magical about a standard modern human, whatever kind of embodiment you want to achieve your full potential, that is what you should have. And the only thing keeping us from it is ignorance, is a lot of things we don't know how to do, and lack of imagination. And those things are going to be lifted over time, I hope.
I love this philosophical, or I guess this leap that we might be making with this line of work. And I'm very, very intrigued what future humans would say when they look back at this time. I'm going to try
just to point out, let's be clear. We've already made the leap, right? So we're sitting here with glasses and toothbrushes and all of this stuff. We have left natural long behind. And so any attempts to say that those things are fine and heart transplants are fine, but no extension of your brain power. You stay at that 100 IQ that you have. Don't go above. This is all completely arbitrary. We've left natural behind long ago.